serial killers have long been the focus of fascination in the minds of the public. True crime aficionados enjoy reading stories about these dark characters from real life. But sometimes these monsters are not as real as they seem. Number 7. Sweeney Todd. There has long been controversy about whether or not Sweeney Todd was a real person. The demon barber of Fleet Street supposedly slit his customers' throats with a razor and gave the bodies to his lover, Mrs. Lovett, to be turned into pies. His first victim was a man with whom he had argued, and after the easy disposal of his body, Todd is supposed to have developed his trick chair, which he used on customers foolish enough to attend his premises. When he kicked the lever, the chair would tip through a trap door to the cellar, whereupon Todd would slit their throats and strip the meat from their bones to make pie filling. Sweeney Todd and Mrs. Lovett were arrested after the number of missing sailors in need of a shave in the area aroused suspicion. Mrs. Lovett confessed immediately before committing suicide. Todd went on trial, accused of the murder of a single sailor who carried a small fortune in pearls. When the premises were searched, police found belongings from 160 other people, suggesting that Todd was a prolific killer. The story is so good that a movie, starring Johnny Depp, is based on it. However, there is no record of Sweeney Todd's arrest, trial, or hanging, which supposedly happened in 1802. There is no report of any other barber committing multiple murders. Nor are there any newspaper archives of concern for missing sailors or strange-tasting pies. Number 6. The Phantom of Helbronn. In 2009, German authorities offered a €300,000 reward for the capture of the woman without a face, who had left traces of her DNA at murders and major crime scenes for over 15 years, including the murder of a police officer in Helbronn. Investigators of the Helbronn murder were shocked to discover that DNA found at the scene matched genetic material from dozens of other cases. The unknown Phantom of Helbronn, as she was dubbed, had committed crimes all across Europe, ranging from murder to burglary and vehicle theft. The first sample from the serial killer was taken from the rim of a teacup belonging to a woman strangled with a piece of wire. The DNA was then traced to the bullet in a gun fired by someone else. It was found in cars, on used syringes, and on murder weapons galore. But, despite the growing evidence, the police were stumped. They launched an intensive manhunt to find the woman, who was clearly dangerous. Late in 2009, however, they finally apprehended their suspect, only to find that the Phantom of Helbronn was, in fact, an entirely innocent woman working in the factory that produced their DNA testing kits. That's why her DNA was found everywhere. 5. The Halifax Slasher. In 1938, 2 mill workers in Halifax, England, were attacked by a knife-wielding madman who was soon dubbed the Halifax Slasher. Over the following 9 days, more and more women fell victim to the slasher. Vigilante groups began to patrol the streets to protect their women and beat up anyone who looked suspicious. Scotland Yard was called in to catch the miscreant before someone was killed by the lynch mobs. As they interviewed victims, it soon became clear that the majority of their wounds had been self-inflicted. The events in Halifax were, it seemed, a classic case of mass hysteria. But what of the original 2 victims? They had given a clear description of the slasher. They had blood streaming from wounds in their heads. Apparently, they had made it up. 4. The Mad Gasser of Mattoon. The Mad Gasser of Mattoon had a peculiar way of attacking his victims. Most serial killers commit their crimes over several years. He attacked 34 people over 2 weeks in 1944. Most serial killers like to watch their victims die. He attacked from a safe distance. Most killers favor guns, knives, or blunt objects. As his name suggests, the Mad Gasser preferred to gas his victims. Some of the victims in Mattoon, Illinois, became ill. Luckily, no one died. No trace of gas was found in the houses, and there were no clues. Despite this, the newspapers ran stories of Mad Gassers and described the victims' symptoms in lurid detail. Over the next few days, more and more people, mostly those who had read the newspaper articles, fell victim to the gasser. Police continued to find no clues, nor any gas anywhere other than where it should have been. there seemed to be no motive for the attacks. No one had been assaulted, and none of the houses had been robbed. The police concluded that there never had been any attacks, and the crimes were the result of mass hysteria brought on by inflammatory reporting of the first case. The police also suggested that the original case of poisoning might, just possibly, have been caused by chemical emissions from the factory next door. 3. Thomas Quick. Thomas Quick was once considered Sweden's most notorious serial killer, having confessed to over 30 murders, though he was tried and convicted of only 8. He claimed to have tortured, abused, killed and even eaten some of his victims. He was convicted on his confessions alone, with no supporting evidence, despite some major discrepancies, such as the fact that his semen did not match that found on one of his victims' bodies. He obligingly helped police to clear up their cold cases, confessing to everything put before him. He was quite often hazy on the details, saying one victim was blonde, when she was dark-haired, and forgetting where he had abducted her. Quick confessed to killing a teenage boy in 1964, when he was aged only 14, though witnesses placed him 400 kilometers, 250 miles, away taking his first communion at the time. There was no DNA evidence, no murder weapon, and no eyewitnesses to his crimes. It was soon discovered that all his confessions were pure fabrication. It's possible the fact that he was drugged on antidepressants throughout all of his police interviews affected his judgment. It was only when Quick's medical team changed, and his medication was reduced, that he stopped confessing to murders. He was eventually acquitted of all 8 murders and released. Quick, who changed his name after the incident, had always had a history of mental problems and was already in an institution when he confessed to his first crime. In 2009, Andrew Scott Haley posted a video online claiming he had killed 16 people and invited viewers to solve clues he had given them to the location of the bodies. He promised to reveal his true identity if they could solve the puzzle, which all seems like a harmless murder mystery game, except that Haley made the mistake of using the details, though not the names, of real murder victims, leading police to believe that he was the actual killer. The police spent hundreds of man-hours chasing "Catch Me Killer," as he named himself online. When he was finally caught, it became evident that Haley was not a murderer at all but a man with a computer and a dubious sense of humor. He was charged with making false statements, despite the fact that he had never named any of the people he had claimed to have killed and had not made these statements to the police. Haley was sentenced to 2 years on a work release program. 1. The Smiley Face Killer. As recently as 2017, 2 New York retired detectives, Kevin Gannon and Anthony Duarte, were examining evidence that they believe connects the deaths of 45 young males whose dead bodies were found in water in 11 states, often after leaving parties or bars where they had been drinking. The men, according to the former detectives, often fit a profile of being popular, athletic, and successful students, and most were white. But it seems that the belief all these cases are related is not shared by everyone. The La Crosse, Wisconsin Police Department, which was in charge of 8 of the investigations, concluded that the deaths were accidental drownings of inebriated men, and stated that no smiley face symbols were found in connection with any of the cases. The Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, issued the following statement: the FBI has reviewed the information about the victims provided by 2 retired police detectives, who have dubbed these incidents the smiley face murders, and interviewed an individual who provided information to the detectives. To date, we have not developed any evidence to support links between these tragic deaths, or any evidence substantiating the theory that these deaths are the work of serial killers. What do you think? Put your opinion in the comments below, and subscribe.